Everyone, Rich Carlton here. Welcome to Tuesday, and we have a very exciting live stream for you today. Once again, we are here talking about the FileMaker platform. It's a very exciting software development platform, and today we're talking about building a vertical market application using this platform. And so the idea is that you can take the software, build a vertical market app for a specific vertical like aviation or medical or dental or engineering or construction or whatever you want to do. And the idea is that you can build the app and then resell the app and in some way build it with FileMaker so it leverages the FileMaker platform. It saves a tremendous amount of time and cost as opposed to just building it, writing it, say in C++, for example, if you're a real serious coder. You can save yourself a lot of time. You can get to market much faster, but there are trade-offs. So let's cover a couple opening house issues here today. First off, we are broadcasting live on the Twitch platform. This is Twitch, mostly for gamers, except that we think it is vastly superior over other offerings that are in the market. And so real quick, who are we? I am Richard Carlton. We run a platinum FileMaker consultancy. We have been in the business coming up on 30 years here pretty quick. We have about 32 engineers with offices in California, Nevada, and Texas. We also have a book in market. We have actually a number of books in market, and we are finalizing the FileMaker 18 book at this time. Meanwhile, our FileMaker video course is available now. It's currently available, along with a complete training subscription if you want that. Additionally, we are shipping FM Starting Point today. 7.0 is shipping actually probably as we speak. And that is the free CRM for the FileMaker platform. It's kind of the dominant CRM because it's free and everyone loves it. A lot of people use it. It's very exciting. So that is RCC. So the conversation today is about building a vertical market application. It's about building it, constructing it, the considerations with FileMaker, and then selling it or somehow licensing it to your end users. So as you have questions today, definitely ask them. Broadcast engineer today is Charles Massey. Say hi, Charles.
Hello.
Charles is here. He's very excited to have him on board. He is one of our FileMaker coaches and really great guy, works hard, and only gives me some attitude, which is excellent. Some attitude is good. It lets me know that he's alive, but if it's too much attitude, then it becomes a problem. So moving along, anytime we do a webinar, we basically target 4 different demographics in the FileMaker community. Basically, you have your business owners, as you can see. You have basically people who are beginner or brand new developers. Basically, what I refer to as our junior detectives in the business. If you're learning FileMaker, or maybe you've been using it for a long time, but you haven't really dug very deep with it, then you might still be a beginner from a development perspective. We have intermediate developers, people who can do a lot of things, but they're really not, ninja level developers. And then of course we have those people who can code and do API work and all sorts of stuff. So basically the audience for today, as much as it is anything else, is we're going after the entrepreneurs or business owners. And so today, we start off the slide, we say it's a business owner, but really this person is the entrepreneur. If you read books and you look at startups and things in general, you have a couple different personalities that'll be involved. And this is nothing I've invented. I'm just simply regurgitating what smarter people have written about. But you have entrepreneurs who are the visionaries who can see what could be, the Steve Jobs of the world, okay? Then you have people who are kind of the organizers and the managers. These are the people that kind of make it all work, right? In terms of like running the business. And it's a personality type too. A person can have more than one of these personalities. Lastly, you have a technician who mechanically screws things together and does the work. Really, these are the 3 kinds of people that make an organization work. And for example, when Apple came about, Jobs was the visionary, Wozniak was the technician, and the 2 people together created a company. And then down the road, they brought on people who were managers and organizers and operational kind of people in the middle. Now, a lot of people can be more than one person. I frequently do entrepreneurial stuff as well as I do coding, although I get to do less and less coding as the years go on because I'm busy managing so much. But the idea is that if you're watching this webinar, odds are you dabble with FileMaker, you play with it, you might even be doing some development. And you're probably already an entrepreneur, which means that you're definitely this green person on the left, and you're probably one of these people on the right. Probably either the brand new developer or the intermediate developer. And so what I am doing is I'm talking to those folks. If you're a senior level Ninja developer, then probably if you're really a senior person, then you know most of this material already, because to become a senior, you have at least, say, 10, 15 years of experience, and you've seen most of everything already that I'm about to present. So moving forward, so what I'm going to do is briefly cover a little bit about the FileMaker platform. The idea is that, at least in this webinar, we have selected the FileMaker platform. Why do we select the FileMaker platform? And the FileMaker platform, why it's so great is a whole bunch of items. There's a huge community in terms of training and resource learning. In fact, that's a lot of area where I sit in. Obviously, this webinar is a learning exercise. You also have the FileMaker Developer Conferences. This year, the FileMaker Developer Conference, I just got off the phone with senior management at FileMaker and discussing what we could say about the upcoming FileMaker Developer Conference. They told me not to tell you everything I know, and so I've been sworn to secrecy, Scout's honor. That being said, if you have not attended a FileMaker Developer Conference, or you've been around for a while and you think it's the same old thing, this year it's going to be different. Definitely go to the developer conference this year. It's a good thing. So there's also, of course, a huge number of FileMaker consultancies that work and support the platform. If you take a look at the FileMaker platform itself, at any given time, there are about 100,000 FileMaker developers worldwide. FileMaker says there's 80,000 based upon the numbers of my calculations. What I define as a developer, even if it's a beginner developer, there's probably closer to 100,000. There are over 1 million people under active subscription, which means that every day when there's about 1 million people using FileMaker. And that doesn't even count the people who stole it and pirated it, which, I mean, that would be probably another 30% anyway. There have been 4 million downloads of the FileMaker Go and from the Apple App Store. And of course, it's being used all over the place. FileMaker says it's been profitable for 20 years. The reality is FileMaker has been in existence for 32 years. I'm not sure why they say 20 years, probably the way the bean counters count, whatever, but they've been profitable pretty much every year for 32, 33 years now. It's a long time. In fact, I came to the FileMaker platform right after it was constructed, so I've been around a long time. So that's why you select the FileMaker platform. It has a rich history, but you don't care about history. It has rich things going forward. If you want to know about the rich things going forward, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill myself because I'm not allowed to tell you. So come to DEF CON, and I'm not being a tease. Trust me, after you're done at DEF CON, you'll realize that I understated this conversation. This has been understated. So the FileMaker platform does a tremendous amount, even just today what it does, never mind what it'll do in the future. Today, it solves problems in a comprehensive sort of way that other platforms don't do. There are companies that try to chase FileMaker. They say, oh, we're like FileMaker, and we're cheaper than FileMaker, except that we only do a third of what FileMaker does. At what point do you have a conversation, you build on another platform, you get to something you need? FileMaker does it, but this other platform doesn't. So there are other companies out there. They're all companies that have been in business a year or two, for example. They don't have the history, they don't have the developer support, etc. So that's why you pick the FileMaker platform. And so the idea is that moving forward in this conversation, so we've talked about we have FileMaker, we like FileMaker, and then we talk about how you have come to this conversation. You, these people here in this live stream, you have come to this conversation. Why? And the reason is that probably somewhere along the way, you had an app, you built an app, you had someone build you an app, and then you said, wow, it'd be really great. People would pay for this. This is really awesome. And so that's kind of where we start off. We have an app that's probably mostly functional in your business. It has some things you probably wish it would still do. I mean, everyone has an app like that. It's really great, except it's missing these 3 things. But we love it anyway. And other people would pay for that. So that's the first thing that happens. Then you have it. Then somehow there's this disease called entrepreneurialism. It's like a disease that you catch, and that starts to spread. And then you start to think, well, I could sell this, and it would be really fun. We could sell a great app. People would love it, and I would make money. And so that's kind of the logic in that. So I don't want you to get stuck with what I call the Underpants Gnome business plan. This is a South Park reference, and it's funny thing about South Park is that they hit upon various serious business points because the guys that write it are, at the end of the day, pretty serious people. And there is this concept and they ran into one of the episodes where the gnomes would steal people's underwear. And they were business gnomes. All they knew about business. They had business, and we're all here to make profit. And step one was to steal underpants. Step 2 and 3, whatever in the middle, they didn't have a clue what it was. They would put their little hands up in the air. And then the last step was profit. So they have an idea, and then at the end there's profit, and there's this whole conversation in between of what goes on. It's really kind of funny. And people get into this all the time. They get into this phase of we're going to develop, we're going to have an idea, we're going to build some stuff. Something happens in phase 2 and phase 3. Everyone loves us and we're rich, right? And so that's called the Underpants Gnome business plan. Seriously, look it up on the internet. So let me run through some of the things that you're going to likely have someone will have told you about along the way. This is generally a very broad outline of the things you're going to run into. Once again, you don't want to be that person. So the first idea is that you're going to need to understand the market and the competing products. So just because someone builds an app for you, you build yourself an app and you like it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful. You need to understand, are there other products out there in the marketplace? What do they do? What don't they do? How much they cost, etc. Right? You really need to understand that. The next thing you understand is your specific cost benefit proposal. If I was to sell this XYZ widget and I charge $100 for it, or $200 or $500 a year, or whatever you're going to charge for it, what is the benefit that we're going to get? You need to be able to articulate this in real dollars and cents, what we call return on investment. You have to be able to make that case. It's very important. And so items 2 and 3 are the beginning of the conversation. Normally what happens is that people have an idea, and then they start thinking about number 2 and 3, and along the ways they do number 4. Now, that's in a normal business, that if you went to business school and they would say the proper sequence of things is to understand and have a plan, and then you build it, right? You don't build it and then throw it against the wall and see if it sticks and fits, right? You never say, oh, let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. People test their spaghetti that way when you're in college. I've done that. The spaghetti's probably still on the wall. It's that process. And in the FileMaker world, what happens is that people build it, they start using it. And so they've already built a prototype, I would call a prototype, or the first version of the product. And then so basically they start at the end, we have this product, and then they go through all these steps in the backwards order, or they jump to the top and they work through it. And so what they do is they go, is there other competing products here? Even though I made my own, what are the competing products and do we fit? And then you have some planning and some wireframes and some design. Well, if you already built it, then you might be inclined to want to skip this. But if you need to flesh out or if you need to complete the application, then you might need these diagrams of wireframes and diagrams and planning, etc. So I'm going to cover that briefly in a second. But the idea is that once you have a plan of what the app does, then you need a budget. And the budget has to be enough, what we call runway. The plane is going down the runway to get in the air. When you're in the air, you're making money, or at least you're making enough money that you're break even, right? And so the runway is the time to build the app, 1, and 2, really important, the time for you to acquire your initial set of customers that will help kind of keep the doors open, the lights on. They have to pay enough for you to stay in business. And so how long will that take? Well, building the app, frankly, is a very specific thing that with enough planning and enough diligence, you can kind of control the timelines on that. But if you are trying to acquire customers, that's a little more squishy, right? So you have to have enough budget to run the business, to pay the salaries, to keep everything running while you're waiting for these customers to come in. And of course, you have to establish a marketing plan to get in front of the customers, right? Are you a recognized expert in these areas, right? Are you already seen as an industry expert? And then I don't know if we have questions. Yeah. So Charles is already falling asleep over here. I can hear him yawning. Why don't you get yourself a Diet Coke? Yeah, that's a good idea. So I'm going to take a quick sip here. So we're motoring along. So are you a recognized industry expert in this business, right? For example, I have certain vertical markets that I am. Well, one vertical market I'm an expert in, another, and I'm not going to get into specifics of that, another one that I wish I was an expert in, but I'm not, but I'm still learning. And that's over and outside the world of FileMaker, right? I'm still learning quite a bit about the commercial aviation business, the commercial helicopter business, for example, just because I'm interested in it. But am I expert in that? No. So if I built an app for helicopter management, that wouldn't be great because I couldn't sell it because I don't have the years of experience. But it's, for example, in FileMaker, 29 years of experience, pretty much I've done almost everything, right? One way or another, or one of my staff have done it. So that establishes credibility that you'll need in that space. And then you have to execute the plan, right? So these are all the things that are, at the end of the day, common startup items. These are things that are not necessarily specific to FileMaker. But what I want to do is address some of the tips and get into specific issues in here about the FileMaker platform and how you are probably somewhat unique if you're in this webinar. And so the first item, of course, is that you have to have a vertical market app that has to solve a definable business problem. And when I say that, once again, that was one of the things before. You have to define the business problem, how you solve it, how much you're going to charge, and what is the return on investment for that. If you can make that case, then you've solved one of the big issues of your business. A lot of people have an idea, oh, it'd be really great to do this. What business problem does it solve? Well, it solves this one issue that I consider a problem. Does anyone else consider that a business problem? Yes, they do. Okay. Is there another application already in market for that, right? No, there's no other app, or there's one app, but it's built on some really old software that's out of date and it's not being updated. Okay, well then it's pretty much wide open. So that's all part of this. FileMaker likes to call this the work rut. You're going to identify the work rut in your vertical market. You're going to identify that work rut, and then you're going to solve that work rut by building a vertical market app, and you're going to leverage the FileMaker platform. You have to be able to articulate that entire conversation. Now, FileMaker is great at doing this, but FileMaker doesn't understand every vertical market. In fact, they understand probably very few vertical markets. They need to count on people like yourself who are an expert in a specific vertical to bring your knowledge and to build this app. And they're happy to support you within reason in terms of making sure that you get the software you need so you can bundle it. The FileMaker #1 understands that the importance of vertical market applications. They have a dedicated team of people at FileMaker. It's 2 or 3 or 4 people. And what their job is, it's called the SBA program, or Solution Bundle Agreement Program. The idea with this program is that you are a expert in your vertical market, and you are going to build this app. And then what you're going to do is you're going to submit it to FileMaker, and FileMaker is going to make sure it doesn't look horrible. It actually kind of functions, the buttons actually work, etc. And then if they accept it, then what they will do is they will allow you to they will admit you into the FBA program, and the SBA program, there's a little bit of an application there with that, and there's a little bit of money involved with that. I think it's $500 a year. But what that does is that gets you into these programs, and then it allows you to purchase FileMaker at a steep discount. And when I mean steep discount, I mean pretty damn steep. FileMaker always gets nervous when I mention numbers here, which I won't do immediately unless someone asks, and no one's asking the question, so I guess no one here actually cares. But that being said, the discounts are steep, and then what you end up doing is take your vertical market app, you bundle it with, say, FileMaker Pro or whatever you're doing, and then you sell it as a complete bundle. And so the trick is, of course, that you're selling a complete bundle. You're not itemizing your app and then FileMaker as separate things, right? So my app is $199 and FileMaker is $199, and so it's $400 total. That's not what you do. You're going to provide a complete price, say $400, and you get this entire package, and you can, of course, help install it, set it up, whatever you want to do. That's all part of your business strategy of your what they call go-to-market checklist. What is your plan? So planning your app. Spending some time diagramming it. Once again, a lot of people build the app, they're using it internally, and they go, oh, wow, this app is so great. Really, people have two opinions, and I run into this all the time with our customers. The opinions go like this. One, I have this really great app. It solves problems that no one else in my business market has solved. It's a competitive advantage. I ain't sharing it with anyone, right? So I'm not sharing it. It's a competitive advantage. I am much more efficient. I have an advantage on my competitors, and I'm not sharing it. That's one mindset. We see that all the time. The other mindset is, wow, I could sell this to everyone else in this vertical market. For example, like a veterinary clinic. A veterinary clinic, really, at the end of the day, if you built veterinary software, and I have this, there's a customer that we know that does this. they're not horribly concerned about having competing veterinary clinics put them out of business, because a vet clinic is really a very regional sort of thing, like almost a neighborhood thing, right? Like you don't want to take, like if I'm in California, I don't want to take my dog and cat to the UK for a checkup, right? You know, fly 12, 15 hours, whatever it is, to get there, and then have the vet doctor check my animal, and then I can fly back. No good. So some things lend itself to reselling the software. Some things are more global, and there might be more competitive forces at play. You as an entrepreneur in that market will know these things. So that being said, if you go down the road of wanting to build the app, you need to diagram it. The reason is that the app you're using in your business is probably not fully fleshed out, fully completed. It's enough for you to use it successfully, and you might be really happy with it, but as a commercial application, it might need to be tuned up, dialed in, fixed, weird little idiosyncrasies, resolved, things like that. And so what you'll end up using is a piece of software that allows you to kind of diagram and scribble things out. You could, of course, take screenshots of your current product and then mark them up if you wanted to. But this is from Balsamic Mockups. It's kind of like balsamic vinegar, like a salad dressing, but balsamic and then mockups. And it's a fairly low cost software, and allows you to draw all this out. And so then you can diagram it, you can write about it. And that way, when you're communicating with the person who's building it, or your investors, or you're going to potential customers saying, what if we had an app that did this? And you're gauging their feedback, they have something visual to wrap their head around. Very important that you have that. This is a really good one. You're not going to find almost anyone who's going to mention this to you outside of maybe a master's program at a college somewhere. And these are two things that seemingly have nothing to do with each other. One is a product definition. The other one is a psychological description, or for someone who has a potential behavior disorder, right? We're talking about obsessive compulsive disorder. And I'm not so much talking about people who are legitimately like super diagnosed with this. I'm talking about everyone in the world. If you're an entrepreneur, and unless you're the biggest slob on the planet, everyone has some level of the need to clean things up. And the enemy of getting a product out the door is this idea of obsessive compulsive behavior. And so that is, so once again, I'm talking about things that you need to be aware of. If this makes you uncomfortable, I am truly sorry. But what we've had customers who say, they give us a spec of what they want built, and we're going to sell this thing. And I have a specific customer in mind that I've talked to maybe once. One of my engineers did a lot of work for them. And they start off with a spec. We give them a quote for about, say, $30,000 to build this thing. Well, what happens is that that's based upon the specification of what he gave us at the time. So we build it. It's great. That's not good enough for us to sell yet. Well, okay, we don't know what's good enough to sell. We're just simply helping you build it, or you're having a developer that you hire, or you do it yourself. The idea is that it's never good enough. And so you keep adding things to it. You keep adding to it more. And it's not like you're adding necessarily making it ugly, or you're making it cluttered, although that is a possible thing that could happen. But you keep adding features. Oh, no one will ever buy it if I don't have this thing in it. No one will ever buy it. It'll never be successful. And I had a guy who was supposed to ship a product, I want to say 4 years ago. To my knowledge, he is still adding stuff to it. He is still adding things to it. And he's never shipped it. And he was really upset with us that the project had cost so much money and he wasn't making money, except that he's the business owner in control of when it ships, and he's never shipped it. And I think in his mind, the product's never good enough. I could get into all sorts of psychology of why that might be the case. It could be true, or it could be just their compulsive behavior to add every little thing and every little feature and test it 8 million times and never get done. When I was working with FileMaker back, I worked really close with them when they launched the FileMaker Cloud 15, and I guarantee the FileMaker people aren't here, so I can tell a story. But they came up with what their very first cloud offering, and they called it the minimum viable product to get out the door. What they did is they came up with all the things they wanted to deliver on the cloud, and then they started chopping the snot out of the checklist. So the opposite of obsessive compulsive, where you add everything. this is where we chop a lot out. In fact, they probably chopped out 70 or 80% of what they probably had in the original diagram. And then they shipped that. And that was the FileMaker Cloud 15 product. And was it good? It was good enough. What is outstanding? It was solid. It wasn't the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, but they were trying to get the minimum viable product out the door so they could get it in front of people, collect data, collect feedback, and then they could use that feedback to refine their trajectory on where they were going. And so FileMaker since then has shipped version 2, which was 16, version 3, which was 17, version 4, which is 18. They have plans for, I guess, version 19, I would assume, although I haven't seen it or anything. And then obviously they've been talking about publicly about kind of revamping the whole strategy and building a much more better version. And so the part about getting it out in front of people is that you get feedback. You can get some early customers. If you take good care of them, they'll stay your customers. But you run the risk of never shipping a product. And so I need to alert people to this issue. It's a real serious problem. If you're if people call you a neat freak and stuff like that, you might want to have a thought of a conversation about where you're drawing the line in the sand and when you're going to ship it. It just ships, and it's just the way it is. Now, the opposite side of this, the minimum viable product, you could have a minimum viable product that sucks. So that's the thing that the OCD person is afraid of. They're afraid of shipping something that sucks. I am very much like that. But you have to draw a line in the sand. They're hard. You just have to make a decision sometimes. And so in between MVP and OCD or OCB, whatever you want to call it, is where you ship the product. And maybe minimum viable is a good way to start. So I've talked a lot about this one, but you're not going to, no one at FileMaker will ever mention this to you ever, because it's not their job to tell you that you might have a personality disorder. And I'm just telling you that even if you have a disorder, it doesn't matter. You have to decide, you have to find a spot where you can ship it. And you have to define that probably in advance and get some feedback from people and then get it out there, see what happens. So licensing strategy. Basically, this is the old perpetual. You buy it once and they own it forever, or they do it annually. I can only tell you that you're probably a small business, unless I'm talking to some VP at Apple or someone, then you're a big business. But the reality is that you're going to want to do an annual licensing strategy on this. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be annual. So every year the people put money in, they reinvest in it. That gives you a supply of income that's coming in that allows you to count on it year over year, more or less, and you can build new features in and new enhancements and things like that. If you build a perpetual strategy, you will have people who will buy it and then they won't ever upgrade it, and then eventually it will malfunction and quit working because it's out of date or incompatible with an operating system. And then they're likely to go off and, instead of recommitting a full purchase price or whatever they would do, they might go and shop and get a competing product. And so the idea with licensing strategy is switching to an annual, in a lot of ways, is much better. For example, I hate certain things. I hate on an annual strategy. For example, Microsoft Office. I hate paying them every year for certain software. Certain things I hate paying on an annual basis for. Some things I'm okay with because it's important, but then you have these peripheral apps like word processing, which I use less and less as the years goes on. And, Microsoft's trying to, highway robbery for, one copy of the stuff. And so you end up using other products and things like that. I'm a big fan of perpetual for miscellaneous things that I don't use that often, but for mission critical, if you sell this software to a vertical market and they use it heavily, it'll be mission critical. They will pay annually for it. Okay, they will. So just keep that in mind. Very important strategy. So when you license the software from FileMaker, you can license it perpetually or annually. And once again, annually makes everyone's life much easier. You need an in the industry. What it means is sometimes they would call it a ringer, right? Someone who's in the business who, and it doesn't have to be stealthy or secret, but you need some sort of, for example, I am learning the commercial aviation business, not at the airline transport business, but at commercial aviation in my spare time. I'm not a recognized expert. Therefore, I could not go and say, listen to me, I'm an expert on the, blah, 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 turbine jet, helicopter, blah, 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 blah. No experience, right? And so if you're going to build a vertical market app and you have an app and you love the app, and you want to resell the app, do you have an in? Do you have some way of marketing, getting in front of people? Can you go to a trade show? Can you do a webinar? Can you do some sort of video training? Can you put it on YouTube? What are the things that you can do that people will want to listen because you're an expert, right? You really need that. If you don't have that, then I would say that you could build the world's best application, but no one will come because they won't know to listen to you, right? That's the problem. You have to get people to, if you're convinced they'll buy it, then you have to get in front of people and get them to pause in their lives long enough to listen. Just because you build it doesn't mean they will come. This is back to that Field of Dreams movie years ago. The guy starts hearing ghosts, his wife hearing ghosts, he's in the middle of a farm, he's almost bankrupt. He bulldozes the cornfield and builds a baseball diamond. And everyone thinks the guy has lost his money. The bank's about to foreclose. And the ghost, the people in his head, the voice in his head would say, if you build it, they will come. I'm here to tell you, no, they won't, right? If you build it and you tell them about it, they might come, okay? And you have to tell them about it. So that's the thing, right? That's the important part of this. You have to find a way of telling it to them, and they have to listen. They have to want to listen. It's very important. So understand that that's a big part of this. If you don't have this issue solved, like all these issues I have here, every one of these is mission critical. They really are. Making sure you will ship it and it just doesn't sit forever in development, burning up money and not actually going out the door. And making sure that if you market it, you tell people about, hey, this is great, come listen to me, that they will actually stop and listen to you, right? This is a big one right here. And if you're not aware, this is a really important one. People will build an app. They'll build themselves. They'll put 100 hours, 200 hours into the project, or they'll hire some developer, maybe $20,000, $30,000. And what they need to understand is that when someone's building you a custom application and you're testing it and it works pretty great, but there'll be a little weird, little funky, I would say sharp edges to it. It's kind of like a shop metaphor, like if you're in a woodworking shop. You know, you might have an app that's really great, but has a couple rough edges on it, and you know not to run into those edges. You just kind of work around it. But in a commercial application, they want it well-rounded, no known bugs that are weird. Like if you have this one bug where you press this button and once every month or so it does crazy crap, but most of the time it works just fine. That might be okay for you and you can work around the issue, but some people will have a problem with that. The point is on this specific topic is that if you're going to want to take your app and round out all the edges, you'd be surprised how much money that burns. Normally it's 3 to 4x. I was talking to another senior FileMaker consultant who has as much experience as I do. He said it'd be at least that. So just understand that for you to get it out the door, you need to be thinking about all these pieces. So what I'm going to do is this is the critical failure section right here. I'm going to kind of rehash the failures that I see. And these haven't been greatly proofread. So failure 1, entrepreneur thinks the app is great. You have a couple friends who love to be your friends, and they're not going to tell you that you're crazy. So they say, oh yeah, it's the most amazing app we've ever seen. You need to get it out there in front of some other people who are not your friends and maybe some business people in this vertical market and ask about it. It's very important that you get honest buy-in. Listen, you can convince yourself of anything if you stare at the mirror long enough and you talk, right? I mean, just the other day, Charles was in front of the mirror telling himself, but I saw him doing it, that he was a supermodel and was the most beautiful man on the planet. He's laughing. No, but you get the idea. I mean, if you believe it's great and you use it every day and you're making money, then everyone else will think it's great because obviously you're not stupid, you're not brilliant. But I mean, if I'm making money and it's great, then everyone else will see that too. That's not always the case. Get some additional, and the doctor, what do they call it? A second or third opinion, right? Get a second and third opinion. Entrepreneurs won't commit to finished products. Once again, I beat this pretty good up. This is the minimum viable product versus your obsessive compulsive behavior to make every feature there and every opinion there. And for example, what you do is you mix this one right here, which is you get feedback from someone, and then you mix this one right here. What if you talk to your customers about your product and they say, it needs some new feature, go fix this thing? Well, then you have to decide whether you're willing to ship it with missing that feature or without. See, that's part of the OCD. You talk to people and they go, well, it'd be really great, I'd buy it if it had this and this and this and this. And you have to decide if you're willing to ship it without those things. If you go to 20 people and they all say it missing the same 4 things, then yeah, maybe you want to put those 4 things in it. But if they all give you a smattering of 5 things, but there's like 2 that everyone keeps repeating, those are the 2 that you want to nail, knock them out, and the other ones are peripheral. You'll deal with those on version 2 or version 3, right? So that's this conversation here. And budget runway. So all these issues are kind of like cascading failures that all pile onto each other, right? And you can see where this one goes. So if you talk to people and they say they need these 4 features, and then you do your OCD thing where you have to build every feature into it, that burns more time. It burns more money. And so the modern comparison people like to say is, how much runway do you have, or how much budget runway do you have? And basically the idea is that you're a startup, you're trying to get your business going. Basically you're in a small plane or a big plane, doesn't matter what kind of plane it is. And the runway is filled with stacks of $100 bills, and you're driving your plane down the runway, and the goal is to get in the air where you're break even or making money before you run out of runway. As a pilot, I can tell you that's the same thing with us. We want to be in the air before we run out of runway, because there's trees and cars and Kmart's and things like that. Walmart's at the end of the runway. You don't want to fly into that. So we need to be in the air. That's the same with you. So you need to make sure that if you've got $50,000 or $100,000, that's enough time to, 1, build it out to your minimum viable product, whatever that is, and 2, to allow time for your adopters to come on board and to hire you. So you need to have enough runway. A strategy suggestion that's come up a number of times, I want to share this with you. If you have an app and you're going to go down this road and you're going to build version 1 and you're getting close to getting version 1, what you need to do is you need to have a set of beta testers. Generally what people do is they give the software to them for free. And then they get to be your first testers, evaluators, to make sure that all the obvious stupid bugs get fixed, and that you're going to, get some feedback. And because you're giving it to them for free, then they're going to spend a little more time and effort. And if they're really sold on it, they will also help be a mouthpiece for you to help yell and tell everyone how great this app is, to help market it for you. So really, part of your runway is build the app, get it in front of your early adopters would be the word I would use. Early adopters, which is kind of give it to them for free. And then you, of course, early adopters aren't giving you money, so that doesn't help the thing with the runway and the airplane is that either your plane needs to get in the air, or you need to put more $100 bills in front of it so it can keep going down the runway before it gets in the air, right? So the plane doesn't run off the runway. So that's kind of the concept here. So yeah, once again, this gets back to being, early adopters right here. It's the marketing plan, surefire marketing plan. How are you going to get in front of these people? Everyone's attention these days is highly divided. This webinar is a funny webinar because what will happen is that I've got a very small number of people here. And what I will do is that I will post it on YouTube, and then I'll have 1,000 people who hit it eventually, or 2,000 or 5,000 people that'll hit it. So live is one thing, recorded is different. And we're trying to make it as interactive as possible. So today is the first time we've actually done the slides simultaneously with my face on at the same time. And so we do have some conversations here. That's Echo Foxtrot Golf 52. How can I buy a FileMaker? Okay, so I'm going to take all the questions. I'm going to take all the questions in terms of this conversation. If we bundle the software with FileMaker, you can sell individual copy of FileMaker. You can also sell little volume licenses of FileMaker. You can sell a 5-pack of FileMaker, and that would come with the way FileMaker sells their software today. They just count the number of users. The preferred licensing is an annual license, and you just tell them the number of people that are going to buy it, and they give you a price. And it's about, in the scheme of things, the cost is between, it doesn't matter what the cost is about. Well, the suggested retail price of FileMaker for 5 users is $900. Okay. And so as a bundle agreement person, you're going to pay a fraction of that number. Okay. You're going to pay a fraction of that number, and then you bundle it with your software, and then you sell it with that 5-pack, which would include the server and 5 users. The users can be Pro, they can be Go, they can be WebDirect. Okay. Any of the 3 clients they want to use, which is fine. And you can bundle the whole thing together and sell it to a customer. So people do that all the time. If you want to sell a single copy of FileMaker Pro, like standalone version, you can do that too. Once again, that's a conversation you start to have with the people at FileMaker. If you're interested in talking to FileMaker about that conversation, I will have Ted type in the email address to the people at FileMaker who you want to talk to. So Ted, it's Stephen Day, but it's Stephen, Stephen _DAY at FileMaker.com. I believe that's his email address. He's one of several of them. I think there's a different person if you're in Europe. But if you want to have your app be considered, and then FileMaker approves it, and then you can buy bundles from them, that's a relationship with the person at FileMaker. You're going to build that relationship. And they'll walk you through the process of applying and getting in there. At the end of the day, it's not, if you have a business plan, if you have a website, if you have a domain, you have a phone number, and it's not just some random idea you have. If you're actually kind of going down the road on this and you want to talk to them, that's the person you reach out to. And then eventually what he would do is he would say, hey, we want you to send us your app. We'll review it. If it doesn't look like a splattering of paint on the wall, or maybe it does, maybe that's your app, then they will approve it, and then they would sell you the software very much discounted. Once again, you cannot reveal to the public as part of your bundle what they're paying for the software, if that makes sense. So that's basically the bottom line of this. So FileMaker wants you can't sell your software without the FileMaker, right? One of those sort of things. If you bundle it, you always bundle it, right? So if someone wants it, they always get it with FileMaker. If they bought FileMaker somewhere else and they want to buy your app, that's strictly speaking no bueno, because what happens is on the website, they can see the price with FileMaker, the price without FileMaker. You do a little math, and you figure out what you're paying for FileMaker. That's the one sticky spot they don't want you to expose. They don't want everyone to know what kind of great deal they're giving you as part of you going into business with them, right? It's not a public component. Stephen Day at FileMaker. Yeah, that's it. So you're going to reach out to this guy, talk to him, tell him that Ted sent you, right? Or whatever my name is today. I forgot my name. So next item I want to cover before everyone just drops off the planet and wanders off. Whoops, I hit the button twice. FileMaker is a great application for building high-value apps. It is not the perfect application for everyone. And this is when I run into people saying, FileMaker is too expensive, right? For example, FileMaker has a feature in the Pro Advanced product which will create a runtime version. That has been deprecated and is being removed from the product. Given all the crazy things going on with FileMaker right now, I don't know where that conversation is at. But the short version is that back in FileMaker 3, they introduced a feature where they could create a runtime. So if you built a little single application like a recipe app where you put your family recipes in it, you could build a runtime, and you paid one time to get the runtime stuff from FileMaker. And then you could just distribute the recipe thing all you want. You could give it away for free, or you could charge for it. That feature has been deprecated. It has huge missing features in it. For example, you like to create PDFs in FileMaker with a button, create a report, PDFs. The PDF generating capability is not in the runtime. As licensing challenges that, FileMaker wants to get away from that runtime business. So from a strategic standpoint, you're going to want to bundle full versions of FileMaker with this. That's the whole idea of being in the SBA program, the Solution Bundle Agreement program. And you're going to email Stephen Day, who's over there, and you're going to email him and find out, what does it take to get into the program. Like I said, there's not too many more things than what I've said. Basically, you have to have a coherent plan, and you have to be executing it. And then, of course, you're going to submit your app for review, and then they would review it, and then you would move forward from there. But here's the rub. Say, for example, that FileMaker is $900 for 5 people with a server, right? The issue is that what you're going to pay for a copy of FileMaker, even for a single copy of FileMaker Pro, is well above $20, right? So for you to get a copy of FileMaker and give it to someone, it's going to cost you more than $20. So if you have a $19 app that you see over here, you're going to lose money on every transaction. You can't make a 99-cent app or a $20 app, or even, at some point you can make money on it, but it's up to you to figure that out. But the point is that FileMaker is good for apps that are high value applications. They're not $12 and things like that. For something like that, you can't use FileMaker because here's the rub. FileMaker gives you this platform. They give you the ability to build an app rapidly. You can build an app much faster than you can do with SQL, with any other system that's out there, okay? It gives you huge infrastructure. It gives you a server that you can use. It gives you cloud infrastructure that you can use. All that pre-built stuff that you're taking advantage of comes at a price. You have to pay for it. It's not free. Some people say, well, my SQL is free. The open source SQL is free. But if you had a $30,000 application you built, it will take you 5 to 6 times more to build it in SQL. I personally know because I've done this. We had an app. It was a basic CRM. It was called Sales Beaver. This whole thing started in about 2010, 2009. And we built an app. It was a sales app, and we coded it in SQL and all this sort of stuff. It cost me out of pocket, the first version, $60,000 to build it. Okay, I lost money on this project, but I'm telling you this story. And at the time, FileMaker didn't have FileMaker Go. FileMaker didn't have a mobile product. I mean, that's a whole nother lunch conversation, how that even came about. But FileMaker Go didn't exist, so we had to roll our own code, like a regular code company, like C++ kind of code. We were using Xcode. We were using all this other stuff. When FileMaker Go finally came out, we rebuilt the app in FileMaker Go. It cost me about $10,000 to build the exact same app. So $60,000 versus $10,000, that's a big chunk of difference there. Yeah, but the downside is that you would have to pay FileMaker somehow for that license. So if you had 5 people that were using it, so let's do the math. I build it for $10,000, but every time I sell a copy, I'm going to have to give, let's just say I have to pay full price. Just say I have to pay full price. I'm going to have to charge $900 plus whatever I'm going to charge for this software. Okay. Well, if you look at the fact that I save $50,000, I'm pretty happy to pay $900 to FileMaker. Now, for a 5-pack, you're going to pay a fraction of the $900 to FileMaker, okay? So it's not even that high. The point is, though, is that you're going to have to give money back to FileMaker for them building you an awesome tool that you saved all that money on, if that makes sense. So there's a kind of a cost benefit. So if you're building an app that's a 99-cent app that you want to sell for 99 cents or for $5 or $20 or whatever it is, you can't get there with FileMaker. The licensing costs are too high. But they're not too high. If you charge some company, they have 10 users, and you charge them $800 a year, $1,000 a year, $2,000 a year, at some point in the financials in there, that'll completely make sense, and they will make tons of money. They will be happy with that, right? Because they get a complete software package that solves all their problems in their vertical market space, which is what you're doing. You're trying to build into that space. And this is a big business for FileMaker. It's a growing business for FileMaker, and they are happy to have new people come into this business while I'm having the webinar. So we're coming up on an hour here. So question, Android app, still a valid solution? Well, iOS and Android are 2 different topics. I mean, the only thing that's similar between iOS and Android is that, there's not too much that's similar between them. We're talking most people use it on the phones or on a tablet. FileMaker has FileMaker Go, which runs on iOS. They are not, say this again, not going to build an app that runs like, they're not going to build FileMaker Go on Android. That's not going to happen. It's not in the cards unless they magically change their mind about how they want to address that. The bottom line issue is that at the end of the day, FileMaker Incorporated is part of Apple, and so you're asking if Apple's going to build an Android app to make Android more popular. I find that highly unlikely. If you actually talk to FileMaker employees where they're not in their little PR mode with their shirt and ties on and they're speaking to you very frankly, they say, well, we're Apple. What do you think is going to happen, right? Now, if they get on stage, they'll say, well, it's not in our strategic interest, and we're evaluating what our customers tell us, and blah, 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 blah. But that's, so what FileMaker did is they did a kind of an in run on Apple back in the day. They built this thing called WebDirect, which is this web browser technology. And what it allows you to do is it pretty much replicates most of the behavior of the FileMaker platform into a browser, onto the current set of shipping browsers. And so FileMaker pretty much used that as a way of creating access for Android users, but it's not really targeted to Android, except they do certify certain they actually in their instructions say certain versions of Android operating system and certain versions of their Chrome browser will work with WebDirect. It's certified, quote unquote, certified to work. So WebDirect is how you solve that. A native Android application. I did another training application, had to do with some security related stuff, and we built an app, and we determined that FileMaker wouldn't allow us to play because we needed to post it in the Apple App Store. And this was before FileMaker came out with their iOS App SDK. iOS App SDK allows you to take FileMaker Go, basically create a runtime with your solution and post it on Apple's App Store. Once again, it's only iOS, it's not Android. I had to create a multi-solution file, so we didn't use FileMaker at all. I mean, I'm mostly a FileMaker company with a little asterisk footnote that, that's about 5% of what we do is nothing to do with FileMaker, because we do run into issues where it's a challenge. If you want to have an app in the Google Marketplace, I think is what they call that, or Play Store, yeah, then you have to build it with something else. At the time, we used LiveCode for that. And so LiveCode's an app that's built by a platform by guys in the UK, and they good guys. They really make great product. Check out our website at fmtraining.tv for the latest schedule. There's a live tab there on the left. Click that tab. You'll see those events. And that's it for today. I'm Richard Carlton with Charles Massey, aka Ted, signing off.